Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the project costing budget versus actual. In this week's training, I'm going to show you how to create unlimited projects and compare the budgeted resources with the actual resources spent. It's going to be an incredible training. I'm going to show you how to create, add new, save, and print them all in a single training. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining me today. I've got a fantastic training. Projects, regardless, big or small projects, whether you're in construction, whether you're doing office work, you want to do project costing. We need to understand how much projects cost. We need to budget for them, and then we also need to know if our actual costs are similar to our budget. We would like to compare those on the same sheet. We also want to create unlimited projects and quickly and easily load them. In this training, I'm going to show you how to do all that and more. We got an incredible little gauge chart that I'm going to show you how to do, and we're going to use conditional formatting to show just how our project budget versus our actual compare. It's going to be a really great training. I've got so much to cover. I do create these trainings each and every Tuesday for you. The download is free. You can check the links in the description. We move rather quickly on these, so feel free to slow down the video or pause it and rewatch it every time. This is for intermediate to advanced Excel, but all types are welcome regardless of your Excel skill. I welcome you here. All I ask that you to do is just go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Make sure you click the like button down below. And of course, I love to hear from you, so add your comments down below. I reply to each and every single comment every week and every day. I'm there for you replying. So I just want to let you know that I'm here for you. If you have any questions, that's what the comment section is for down below. If you ever thought taking your Excel skills to the next level, turning it into passive income, well, the truth is you can. In fact, in my mentorship program, I am showing you just how to do that. We're going to take you every step through the defining phase. Then we're going to go into design, development, and deploy. I'm going to show you the complete process of how to create your own Excel applications and release them for passive income, just as I've been doing since 2015. I'm going to show you that. In the mentorship program, I'm going to be creating an amazing accounting application and showing you every step of the process. And that's going to include invoicing, inventory, purchasing, full customer deployment, a complete dashboard, an amazing email and notification center for over 50 triggers, and a ton more. If you would like to learn how and see how an amazing accounting application gets created, the mentorship program just might be for you. Go to myexcelmentor.com and learn how, if this is right for you. All right, let's get started. We've got a lot to cover. I want to make sure that we give this a name. I've got a blank worksheet, but I've got some things to help us move along. I've got some formatting. And what are we starting off with? Well, I want to put our projects. I want to create unlimited projects on here. So I want to have a button set. It's going to allow us to save projects, add new projects, and print projects. It's going to be really simple. And then what I want to do is I want to have a list of those projects. So once they get saved, they're going to go in here in the list of projects. And then there's projects that have specific items. So inside each product will have items. So we need to know a project number, and then have those items, whether those items type are labor or materials. And then what we also want to do is make sure that we have the budgeted cost, the actual cost. So we want to save all that information in the table. So we've got that. I've also got a list of customers here, just kind of a basic customer with not much going on there. When I load a customer onto the projects, I want to have their address 1 and 2 appear inside the project. And I have an item list, just a kind of basic item list with item types, labor, and materials. I also have some named ranges. It's going to help us move along. Let's go over just a few of them so we can do that. Name manager. And then I have just basically 4 different item numbers. We have a customer name, and that's just a dynamic named range using offset. I've got a whole training on named ranges, so we're not going to focus on that. It's dynamic using offset, so as our list increases, so does our named range. I've got the same one for item name. I want to know all the item names, and that's in a drop-down list called item_name. And then I have a project number also. It's going to be dynamic so that all of our project numbers go. Those are the 3. What you see here is criteria, extract. Those are from advanced filters that have already been run on testing, and we can delete those. They're just going to be recreated each time that we create an advanced filter, which is pretty normal. So really we have these 4 that we're going to be focused on. So let's get to it in the training. I want to make sure that you get, so what kind of name am I going to call this? I want to call this project, and notice it's already formatted just to make things easier. Costing, budget, let's try versus actual. And I'm going to double check my spelling because you guys always correct me because I mess up my spelling all the time. Project, costing, budget, but that's going to look good for now. Okay, so let's go with the green. Now, often you ask me, well, what color sets? I try to use different colors sometimes. I've also got some information here. These 2 columns we're going to use for admin, and they're going to be hidden. And when you get this, if you want to take this to another level and you want to release this to your clients, you're more than welcome to do that. Just right-click and hide these columns and make sure you lock your worksheet. Okay, so I want the customer row here, whatever the customer row is. I want a project row, and I want a new project. We're going to write some formulas for those. A project load, whether it's true or false, and new project. So the new project, this is going to be true or false. We're going to just set that up right now. And then the project load is going to also be true or false, so we'll set that as false. We need to know when the project, and then I need a next project number. What would the next project number be? If I've got the project number 1, I want to know the next one. What would it be? Well, we'd use the max formula. So why don't we write a little formula for that? I'm going to use if error just in case there's nothing. If error, in case there's no projects, I want to use the max on the current numbers. What is the max of what? The current project numbers. That's that named range. But I don't want just the max. I want the max plus 1, so plus 1. What if there's no project numbers? I want to default to at least number 1, so we can do that. Why would we do that? Well, just in case. Notice it's 2. It's going to give us the next one. That's what I want. But if for some reason this got removed and there were no projects at all, I'd want this to default to number 1. So that's going to help us if we do that. Okay, I'm going to put that number 1 back. It'll help us for loading purposes. I'm going to keep the data in here. So project costing budget. So basically what I want to do is I want to have a table down here. I want to have some project information here. I'd like to have some summary information here and maybe a small graph here and then just information. So let's go ahead and bring this out a little bit. I want to just take a look at this here. We'll go all the way to ads, and I'm going to format those cells just to give it a kind of a look. We'll go with green on this one. Green is the color of money usually in some countries, so why don't we go with that? Because I want you to use this to not only make money with your clients, but I would like your clients to make money with that when they create this application and use this application. They can then reduce their costs and increase their profits. That would be nice. So I'm going to fill effects, and then I'm just going to give this slightly off the screen, just basically a green color, and that's fine, just a faded green. Okay, so what do I want down here? So basically I want to color, let's just say column C. I'm going to use this as a buffer column, and that means we could increase or decrease this column width. Nothing will happen in that column. And then probably around column O, let's just say I'm going to hold down the control, and then I'm going to go here all the way to S. So that way I'm just going to go down as far. It doesn't really matter how far we go down. I'm going to color this standard green color that we're using. Okay, so we're going to color that green. So now I've got that. So let's bring this, we don't need this extra. We can color this white too. We don't need this. We'll go up. Okay, so let's add in some company name here. So let's go ahead and Fretters Construction. And we'll go ahead and put in an address in here. Just, that way your projects can always look professional. Main Street, Anytown, USA. Okay, so we've got that. So we've got a little bit of a company information. I'm going to add a logo in here. And then I also want to put in the project name. That's going to be helpful too. So let's go ahead and project name. And then I want to store the customer, of course. So we're going to put the customer name here. Right justify, those are all ready. So I'm going to put in a drop-down list. I want a data validation. If we notice, remember we have a data validation. So let's put one in for the customer, and it's going to be a list type. And then what we're going to do is put in customer equals customer underscore name. That's the drop-down list that we've given. So now we've got a list of all of our customers, which is what I want. Now when I select a customer, what I want to do is I want to put the address 1 here and address 2 here. So that's it. We're not going to need these grid lines much longer. We'll use them just a little bit to help us. But we're going to undo those very, very soon. So I want to put the project number here. I want to put a project number, and then I want to have the project number go here. Let's just say 1 or 2 or whatever it is there. And then I also want to have a date here, the project date, and I want to have a created by. Who created this? Created by. So we can keep track of that. That's all the information I'm really going to store here. Let's say in J7, let's say I'll put some formats in. I'm going to format those because I want a green part. So let's go ahead and fill effects. I'm going to put in a green. I'm going to go from white to this light green here. So the white's going to be our first color, and then our second color is going to be that light green. And I'm going to use a vertical, and I'm going to go left. Now, why do I want to do that? Because I want to have this area right in here, all for our admin, so we can see our project costing summary. Kind of, I want to put the summary in here. It can look nice. And then I'll put a border around here because I want to have it all the way around here. So just on a big border here. Let's go. We can go all the way down to about here. And then I'll put in maybe a dark green border so it fits with our theme. Go ahead and into the borders. A thicker one, we'll select a darker green color, maybe this, or maybe a little bit darker here, just a little bit darker here. And then click OK, and then surround it. Okay, that's what I want there. That's going to set up our project. We can. Now what I want to do is I want to put in some underlines here so we know which. So I'm going to hold down the Control, format the cell. And I'm going to use maybe this double line here and put underneath, because I want to know which lines are going to be the user to fill in. I think that would be helpful there. So the address is going to go here. I'm going to put the header here. What I want, and then I want to put my table down here. So what would be the first one? I'm going to call that item name. And I want that on a different row. I want that on 2 rows. So I'm going to hold down the Alt and click Enter and then put in name. That's going to put it on the 2nd row. Once I have the item name, I want the item type. It's going to be labor materials. So item type. And then I also want item description. And I also want, I want 3 columns for budget and 3 columns for actual. So let's do it, and I also want to total it up. So total budgeted, let's see, the budgeted will go here. And then I'll put in down here, I want to put in the quantity of the budgeted. So QTY. I'm going to put in the cost and then the total. And then I want to do pretty much the same thing, but slightly different. But this is going to be actual. So I'm going to copy this, paste it here. And this is, of course, is going to be total actual. So I'm going to change this to actual. And then what I want to do is I want to have a formula here and here for the totals, for the total budget. So I'm going to merge and center this, holding the Control, merge and center that. And then I'm going to format these particular cells. So I'm going to give it a format the cells. And I'm going to give it that fill using the green theme, fill effects, but I'm going to use a little bit darker. So I'm going to use the mid to the mid light here on this one. And then we're going to click OK. And on the bottom one here, on all these bottom ones here, I should have done it too here. Format the cells, fill effects, and then we're going to use just a slightly lighter one that we did previously, which is this mid, and then we're going to go to the light one. That's the one I want. Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to do the same thing here and here. Format those cells because I missed those. But I want the totals. Oh, we could keep those white, but they're gonna be formulas, so we'll put in the same effects that we want to here, which is that mid green here, and then we're gonna go down, and that's it. Okay, good. So for the rest of these, what we're going to be doing in this one, and I'm gonna hold the Control down. For these, I'm gonna use the full from the mid to the light automatically. That's gonna give us that nice blend. So again, we're gonna go from that mid green all the way to the lightest green. So that way, because those are merged and centered. That's what I want. Let's give it some borders, format those cells. I'm going to go for a top, bottom, and then inside. So the borders in the middle, of course, will be this, and then I'll put the top and the bottom here. That's what I want. We can actually add it here too as well for those ones that are not merging. That's what I want. So here, so I'm going to right justify these two because I want the total. So this is going to be the total of the budgeted. So equals the sum. And basically, we can just start here and then go down to whatever row we want. 9999, that's fine, that'll cover it here. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So all I'm going to do is just going to copy and paste this here. That's going to cover us for the total. So we have the total actual, which is going to be whatever here. We have the quantity and the cost, so this. But I do want some lines that I could separate these. So I'm going to go all the way down here, hold the Control, and then I'm going to do the same thing, Control, and then go all the way down here. Should have gone down to the bottom. And then let's hold the Control one more time. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some right borders on here. I'm going to right click and format the cell. Sorry, it's off the screen. Bring it up here. So I'm going to put this black in here and then on the dotted lines on the inside. That's what I want so that we can differentiate between those. That's what I like. So we can clearly separate between the budgeted and the actual cost. Here we're going to put something like, I want to know the versus the budget. So in this case, I want to know what the actual is versus the budget. So we can put in VS budget, and then I want to put amount here, budget, and then Alt, and then Enter, and then amount. So we can put amount in parentheses. This is going to be the amount differences, and this is going to be the percentage difference. So we could put in versus budget, and then we can put in percentage here in parentheses. So percentage, because I want both of the percentage, and we're going to use conditional formatting with some icons. Percentage. All right, so we've got amount and percentage. That's good. I want the item name here. So the item name here, we have it. Let's put this into data validation too, because I want the item name to go here. So data validation, and then we're just going to click yes, whatever is in. I had it previously there on item name, so that's okay. All I want to do is click item name, and that's going to provide. I had it in some cells already. That's why it appeared there, because I hadn't cleared it out from a test. That's fine. So what I want to do is I want to select a specific item here. And I want the item type and the item description to show up. I want default the quantity of 1, the cost, and then I want to set the quantity here and the cost here. Maybe on this one, but we definitely want the user to be able to change these, obviously, so we can get the total. This is going to be formulas, and this is going to be formulas, and this is going to be. So let's go ahead and differentiate between in which what the user will be changing, which is all these informations, and not the formulas. So I'm going to hold down the, I'm going to hold shift, go shift, and then hold down the control and go all the way up. I'm going to add some conditional formatting for this specific one. So first I'm going to format the cells, and I'm going to give them this back color here, and then I'm going to also add some conditional formatting here. New rule, I'm going to use a formula, and I'm going to use the mod formula. I want every even row. So mod, it automatically comes up using auto hotkey. I'm going to format those. I'm just going to go a little bit darker on this color here. That's it. So I'm going to do something similar on the other one. So that's what I want, a little bit darker cells. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add conditional formatting to the rest of them, which is here, holding down the control, scrolling down here, and then holding down the control a third time here. And then we're going to go down, and now I'm going to add some conditional formatting on these. So basically it's going to be very light. A new rule, using the same rule, in fact, equals mod, also the even rows here. And then what I want to do is format with just a very light color. So I'm going to pick this color, but I want even lighter. So I'm going to go a little bit lighter here, right here. That's what I want. Okay, so that's going to give it a very light color. That's what I want. So something nice like that. Okay, let's go ahead and save our work, and now we don't need the grid line, so we can remove the grid line. It's going to give us a cleaner look. So what do we want now? We want a date in here. We want created by. We've got a lot of information. Now we're almost ready to write some macros, but I want some information in the summary here. What do I want to know? Well, I want to know what the total budget is. That's important. I want to know what the budget is, and basically it's going to be, I want kind of a summary. So this is going to be equal to whatever this is here. That's our budget. And then I want to know what would 20% below our budget be. So let's just put in some number here just for the fun of it. And then I'm going to put in, let's just say $50. Let's just say $100 to be, so it's easy. And then I'm just going to put in a temporary formula here. I'm going to update that formula in a moment once we get them all, but I just want to get that total. Okay, so we know our total budget's it's $100. So let's format this. So if our budget is format, I want to know what is 20% below the budget. So we're going to put in some text here. 20% below, okay, and that's enough. And I also want to know 20% above. What's 20% above the budget? If we go over the budget, I want to know above the budget. And then I want to know what the actual costs are. And then I want to know the dollar difference here. What is the dollar difference? And I also want to know the percentage difference of that, percentage difference. All right, okay, I'm going to right justify all of these because they're going to be based on that. So I'm going to right justify them here. And now what I want to know is what's 20% below? Well, 20% below is going to be equal to 100 times 0.8. That's going to give us, so our 20% below, if it's 20% below would be at $80, above would be 120, so obviously equals here 100 times 1.2. That's going to give us our, so that's going to give us, let's format these, not the percentage one, let's format those with a currency here. We'll just go ahead and currency, that's fine, so we can get some dollars. All right, so now what are the actual costs? Of course, the actual costs are going to be right here. So there we go. So what if we have a quantity of, what if it took a little bit longer, 1.2, and the cost was $100. So it took a little bit longer, and then we'll just put in a temporary formula here. I'm going to add some more onto that, equals this times this. Okay, so now we have our information, 20% above. We know this is job. Let's put in some dotted lines. I want to add to this a little bit more. I'm going to put some double lines. So format the cells. I want this to stand out, so I'm going to put the double lines on the top and bottom. So it stands out a little bit more. These actual costs will stand out. All right, and this one's going to be a percentage, so I'm going to format. It's already formatted from some tests that I did. In here, what I want to do is I want to put some graph or a needle graph, which is needle gauge, we call it, the color-coded gauge. That's going to be really cool. And here, I need some information for that needle gauge. So what I want to do is I want to show in basically a graph format, are we above, are we at, are we below the budget? So let's add some information in. Needle gauge here. And what do I want to know? I want to know the actual cost in a percentage format, but differently. Basically, if it's actual cost, if it's above the cost, I want to know that it's going to be different. It's going to be, the actual cost is going to be either from 0 to 100. In this case, I want a 0 to 100 percentage-wise based on if we're below the cost. So basically, if we are at 20% below, I want it to show 0. If we're at 20% above, I want to show it to 100%. So that's going to help us just for our gauge, it's really for our gauge. And then what do I also want to know? I want to know the needle. I need to know the needle thickness. Needle, it's just a thickness. So that's going to show us for our gauge. It's really cool. And what is the limit? The limit's going to be 100 on that. So the limit's 100. And also I want another one, view. I want to be able to insert and search for additional projects by entering a project number. So view project. And then what we'll do is we'll make this white. So the user will actually enter a project number here, and then it will automatically load. That's what we're going to do. That's it. That's all I really need to do. So let's go ahead and put some borders around that, format those cells. I'm going to use that same green, go all the way around, and then I'll just add in some border here. Okay, good. That's pretty much what I want here. Now we're going to put some formulas in here. And in this formula, basically, if they're exactly on budget, I want to show 50%. If they are below budget by, let's say, 20%, I want it to show 0. And if they are above budget by 20%, I want it to show 100. So that's exactly how I want. So how do we do that? We can do that with a formula. First, let's just, if there's an error, I don't want it to show anything. So if there's an error, and then what I want to do is I want to make a subtraction. So it's going to be L5, I want the actual cost minus L3, minus the 20% below, minus L3. That's going to get us the 20% below, and I want to divide that by the difference between the 20% above and the 20% below. So that's what I want to do. I want to divide it. So how do I do that? Well, again, we divide it by 20% above minus 20% below, just like that, minus L3. And then I want to multiply that times 100 because I don't want the decimal value. I want 100 or 50 or 0. So how do I get that? Just multiply it times 100. And then, of course, if there's an error, comma, and then we're going to put double quotations if there's an error because I don't want anything to show. There we go. That's what I want. So I want it if we're 20% above. In this case, we're 20% above. I want it 100%. That's exactly. Now, what if we're on budget? If we're exactly on budget, I want it to show 50. And if we're on 20% less, so 0.8, then I want to show 0. That's exactly what I want. This wouldn't be 8. This wouldn't be 8. Let's change this to a number here. So we're going to change that to a number. And then the same thing with this. This is already a number. So, okay, we're good to go. Let's change this. I'm going to format it as a number in case we want to use decimals and not general, because especially in a number field. So number, that's good. All right, so now that we have our gauge, and we'll set our needle, that's a thickness that we're going to use, and I'm going to show you that in just in a moment. Okay, great. So now that we have all that information, we're ready to write our graphs. So how do we do that? I want to create this really cool gauge graph so we can gauge it. So let's start out. It's really going to be a combination of two graphs. So how do we do that? Well, first we're going to insert, and then we're going to insert, okay, and then we're going to insert other charts, and we're going to insert a donut. We don't necessarily need to select any data. That's fine. So we're going to right-click. I'm going to click Select Data, and then I'm going to add it. And basically what we want to do is we don't necessarily, I just want the background. In other words, we're not going to be going on any data in this case. So I really want 5 parts above and 1 part below. So I'm going to use a comma. I'm going to put 5 ones in. I want 5 equal, which is exactly right. And then I want 1 that's large on the bottom, and I'll show you how to do that. So that's all I really want. I don't need a series name also. So perfect, that's all I want. So notice basically I've got 5 equal parts on one side and I've got 1 equal part on the left. So okay, so now what we can do is just click here on it, and then we're going to format the data series. And the first thing what I want to do is, let's move this over so you can see both. And the first thing what I want to do is I'm going to rotate this because I want this big section on the bottom. The best way to do that is rotate it 270 degrees. That's going to place this part on the bottom. Now what we can do is we can format those. So let's continue and format this data point, or all the data points. This particular one, I'm going to give it a fill. I don't want any fill on this, so no fill on that one. These I want to basically go from green to red and kind of a blend. This we don't need also. So how do we do that? Well, we can do a fill effect. So I'm going to select on this one specifically. And I'm going to go into the fill, and I'm going to go into gradient fill here. And I'm going to set it up. So this particular, and what do I want? I want a linear, which is correct. And I'm going to start, I want this one on the bottom. So this linear down here is the one I want to focus on. But the colors I don't want. So this color here, I'm going to focus on the dark green. I want a dark green here, like this color green here. Then I'm going to just focus on this dark green here. And then the next color, I'll select that. And I'll go to just a bit of a lighter green, like this. That's what I want to go from darker green to lighter green. Now what about the next one? All I need to do is select on the next one, go back into fill, gradient fill. In this case, all we're going to be doing is switching. This time I want the lighter from the darker. I'm going to use this one right here, this one, the bottom left to top right. But in this case, we're not going to be the dark green, so we need to change this color. We want this to more of a yellow color. So I'm going to click on this yellow, and that's what I want. So I want to go from dark green to yellow. Good, that's it. Now what I want to do is I want to select on this one. I'm going to go back into the fill, gradient fill here. Again, we want the yellow, but we don't want the green, so we're going to change this to maybe an orange, like something like this orange here. So now that we have that orange, but now we just have to get the fill right. So now what I want it to go from left to right on orange, so it's going to be this one here. That's what I want. Selecting on this one here, we're going to do pretty much the same thing. Gradient fill. But this time we're going to go from yellow to more of a darker orange. So let's change this to more of a darker orange, something like this. Now we've got the dark orange. The only thing we need to do is just change it around from left to right. So we can do the direction. In this direction is going to be like this. That's what I want. And the last one, we're going to go from orange to red. So let's click on the last one. Again, go into the fill, gradient fill. We want this darker one, correct? But we're going to change this to the red. So this one, we're going to go to just a red right here. That's what, and now all we have to do is change it. So in this case, we are going to go from upper left to this orange is a little bit, probably this orange could go a little bit lighter, I guess, probably something like that. Make sure we've got it right. Okay, so this one we want to go from upper left just so we can see it. Upper left, this is what we want, upper, just like that. And now we can change it back to our original orange so we can see it. Now we can change it back to our original orange just so we can see it better. Okay, good, that's what I like. That looks nice. Okay, so now we're good. So now what I want to do is click on the shape itself, and I don't want to fill on that, so no fill on the shape there. And I also want no outline, so no click, no outline. That's what I want, and then we can just square it up. We don't want a square feel, so let's put it a little bit in the square. All right, now I just want to make it a little bit smaller, so I want to fit it in our area. So we're going to put it in a box, and I'm going to make it equal to this border here. So I'm just going to bring it up here so it's equal to the border. That way it gives us some guidance there. Perfect. Okay, so what else do I want? Before I move that into place, I want to put a few more things inside here. I want to know, again, in this case, the actual costs, and I want to have them here. And I also want to know the labor costs, and I also want to know the material costs. We can abbreviate that, material costs. So I want to know all those things. So what is the actual cost? Well, we have those, of course, right here. I'm going to repeat it again. We have it in a few different places, but I want the actual cost here. I want it to show up here because I want it to show up under the gauge. Okay, so we've got that. We're going to put in these two formulas. So let's go ahead and sum out our labor cost. I want our actual cost. So equals sum if, right? We're summing it if, and what is the range? And the range is going to be basically on this item type here. So we're going to go all the way down. We can go down to, let's say, 999. It doesn't matter. Just a large row. And then what is the criteria? The criteria in this case, of course, it's labor. So we'll focus on labor types. And what is the sum range? We're going to be this total. So we're going to use the same thing and just go to 9999. Going to be no data right now, which is fine. Okay, so let's copy that. The only thing I want to do is change that sum if, copy that. And then in this case, we're going to go to material. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to change this to material. I'm going to double check on those names. Those are the ones that are going to come from our material. So material. Okay, so we've got that, and then I'm just going to left justify all of these. That's what I want. Now let's go into the item list. So we have materials. I should add an S onto that, and labor. So that's it. That's all we have to do. Put an S on the end of that so we're exactly right. All right, so we have material costs, labor costs, and as soon as we add our items in, so as soon as I put labor in here, that's going to give us a number, and as soon as I put material in here and give it a number, of course, give it the cost here. Let's just say 120, and then give it the formula here, equals, okay, so let's write up that formula now because I want to make sure that there's actually a value here and here. So let's write up the formula and bring it down to all of them. So equal, so we're going to start out with equals if, and it's going to be and, two conditions because I want two conditions. This one should not equal empty, does not equal empty, which is the J column J, the quantity column. And what else? I also want to make sure that we have a cost here. That cannot be empty as well. Cannot be empty. Okay, so once we have those two, we know it, then we can only then can we multiply J times K10, okay? Otherwise, I want it empty. In case if one of those are blank, I want it empty. That's the formula that I want. Now I can copy that down. Copy that, Control Shift down arrow. And we'll actually go down a little bit, all the way down to here actually. And then what we'll do is just paste in that formula. And I want the same thing here, so I'm going to just copy that all the way down, and it's going to copy over correctly. Right-click, copy that, and then bring that same one over here. Right-click, paste the formulas. Okay, that's what I want, and of course, that's all I need. Now we have our, now let's go ahead and save our work. Now we have our material costs here, we have our 80. Let's just set the currency on those, so we know that they're all currency. Perfect. Okay, so now we're good. Now all we need to do is build out that gauge. So let's bring that back over here, right where we want it up, right there. Line it up accordingly. Now I just want a gauge. So how are we going to build that gauge that's going to show it? Very easily. All we need to do is just select on this information here that we added earlier, and we're going to insert. And this time we're going to insert a pie chart. So we're going to insert a pie chart here. That's going to give us what we need to have. So we have the three data, but we're just going to hide it. So let's take a look. So we have our basic pie chart. We don't need this legend here, so we can remove that, delete that. And we actually have three. Notice there's this little light blue. That's the one I want. So that one, everything else is going to be hidden. So this one we're going to fill. Right click, let's go into the format the data point. That's what I want. Bring it over here. Let's go into the fill here. I want no fill on that outside. Click on the data point here. Fill on that. I want no fill on that one. But this one I want to fill on. So this data point right here, that's the one I want to fill. That small little one, that's the one I want to solid. There you go. That's it, that dot. If we increase this 2, it'll make it larger. So I want to make that small one black. The only thing we have to do is we need to rotate it just like we did the other one, 270 degrees, 270. That's going to get us our information we want. Now it actually costs us 300%, so it's not going to show up in the right area. That's fine. But as soon as we add some proper data in there, it is going to show up. So let's do that right now before we move forward. I'm going to bring this down here. So let's add some normal cost here. So we notice we have a 200 and 100. We can't have that. So let's get rid of that. And we'll make it so now we have it exactly on the cost. So it's slightly different, which is what we want. There we go. So now we're going to bring it up. And now we've got the needle. Now we just need to increase this, make this smaller, and then increase the entire one right here. So it's going to be exactly the same. Now we have our gauge. So now we notice we're under budget here. Notice how that moves here. So what if we're on budget? On budget, there, that's the one I'm going to want. What if we are over budget? If we're over budget by, let's say, 1.2 here, I want it all the way in. If we're under budget, 0.8, I want it there. Perfect, that's what I want. Let's just say we are slightly under budget, 0.90. Good, that's exactly what I want. Notice that that gauge now shows up. As long as they're slightly not centered, we can move it over a little bit there. Now it's centered. So now we have the actual cost there. Now we have our cool gauge. All right, great. So we've made a lot of progress. All we need to do is let's save this project information and let's be able to load it. So we're going to add some buttons to do that. So we're going to insert some shapes. I'm going to insert a square shape right here. Just some buttons here. Just a nice, big, beautiful button here. Let's give it a nice color and a nice format. So let's format this, and then I'll give it a different background color. Something that goes along with the theme like this. That looks good. And then I want to do, let's call this save or update. And then increase the font a little bit, make it bold and white. Right justify it and center it, and then we'll increase the font. That's a bit too big, so let's just go with 13 on that. Okay, so we've got save and update. I want add new, so I'm going to hold down control, delete, control duplicate, bring that down here, and one more time, I also want to do it. So we're also going to have a print project under that. Print project. I want the print, and I want to add new. Add new. So I want to do all those things. Okay, good. So we're looking really good. This is looking really nice and beautiful. Of course, we need to add in some VBA, but let's finish it out. Let's add some pictures to this to make it look a little bit beautiful. I've got some ones saved up here. That's going to help us. Inside my project budgeting folder, I've got ones already saved up here. So let's go ahead and add all these in. These are going to help us here. All right, we just need to make them proper size. So let's go 0.25 for now, and then we can update them accordingly. All right, bringing them over here. So the first thing I want to do is add a project icon and bring that over here. Make it a little bit bigger. It's just a little bit of an icon for project costing. We're going to use that. I want this is going to be the background for saving. That looks good. I'm going to duplicate that because I want to use that for add new too. It's like a little green form that's going to use. So for the add new and the save, I'm going to use these two icons, but they're a little bit too big. So we'll go to 0.18 on that. And then great. So now what we want to do is I want to put this plus right on the add. I'm going to bring that to the front. I've got it automatically here. And I want to do the same thing for this, this, and this. Make sure that they're all brought to the front. So I'm going to do this. It's the same as bringing them to the front, same as here. So once they're at the front, I'm going to bring this one right up here. That's going to save it. And then I want to print here. And, ooh, that looks nice. And then what I'm going to do is use this as like our company icon, like a construction icon here on the project. So that looks nice. All right, let's make these italicized and bold here so it stands out a little bit. Perfect. Save our work. It's coming together really nicely. I'm going to line up all of our icons. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to line this up, make sure all those are lined up in the middle there. And I'm going to do the same thing with our buttons. And I'm going to line those up on the left, actually. And I'm going to do the same thing with the buttons, lining those up on the left. So I'm going to format, align, and then left. All right, great. So now everything's lined up. So now we just have to group our buttons. So I'm going to use the selection tool. I'm going to group it. I'm going to call this Save Button, something similar. And then Add New Button. And then group this again. And then click Add New Button. And the buttons are going to be really simple. And then just Print Button. Keep it simple. Group it. Call it Print. Great. All right, good. We're done with the screen. Now all we need to do is just update this. I do have to add some conditional formatting in here. I want to put some conditional formatting to make it look really good. Why do I want to do that? I want to know the version amount. What is the amount difference here? Well, that's pretty simple. I just want to make sure that there is values, and if there is values in both I10 and IL10, in that case, what I want to do is just say the amount difference. So if, and then we can use and, because there's two fields I'm checking. This field does not equal blank. That would be our total budget. And what else? And I want to make sure that our actual costs do not equal blank. So do not equal blank. If those two conditions are met, then what do I want to do? Then what I want to do is I want to simply subtract. In this case, I want to subtract our actual cost minus our total. And why is that? Because if our actual costs are higher, I want to show that we are over budget. So for our actual costs, so in this case, L10 minus I10. That's it. Otherwise, empty. So that's all we're going to do. So I want to show the negative. In this case, negative is good because that means we're under budget, So that's what I want. So I want to show that in dollar amount. I want to show that also in percentage amount too. So how do we do that? Well, in the percentage amount, again, we're going to check, we're going to use basically very similar. So we're going to copy that, but it's going to be very similar. In this case, in case they're not blank, I basically want to divide L10 divided by I10. So this one's going to be just simply division here, and that's going to give us, and then I want to do subtract 1 in that case. That's going to give us a percentage value. So that's what I want. We're minus 10%. It's already formatted. So in this case, perfect. So now I just want to add some conditional formatting to this to make it look right. I want some icons and some things that are going to help us. So how do we do that? Well, that's pretty simple. All right, first what we'll do is we're going to highlight all the cells that we want to affect. So we'll go all the way down here. This is the one we're going to affect. We're going to use some icons for this. First thing I want to do is I want to put a dotted line. I want to put a little bit of separator here on this on the right side. And I'm going to add some conditional formatting. So we're going to go in conditional formatting, new row. We're going to use an icon set here. We're going to use an icon set. So what kind of icon set do we want? I want to use something maybe like some up and down arrows. So perhaps something like, we'll click, let's go ahead and click this one. This is the closest one to that. And so for what I want, in this case, I want to show a down arrow. In this case, if it is greater than 0, remember, plus means we're above budget, but above budget. I don't want to be above budget. I want to be below budget. Okay, so if it's above, and then what I want to do, if it's less than 0 or equal to, in this case, less than or equal to 0, what do I want to show? I want to show just maybe just this line, this yellow line here. And then I want to show the green arrow. In this case, and this is based on numbers, right? We're focused on numbers here. So this is going to be numbers. So when the value is greater than 0, I want to show the red arrow down because we are above budget. We went over budget. That's a bad thing. Otherwise, if we're at 0, it should be on that yellow line and then above. And if we're greater than, let's just put greater than 0. We want to be there. Greater than or equal to 0 is fine, and then everything else we're going to put the up arrow. So let's take a look at that. That's what I want because we're $10 below budget, right? Our budget, our total was 100. We only spent 90. We're above it, so we're $10 above budget, and we got the green arrow. Let's try this for this one. What if we go? In this case, we're going to go above budget by 1. In this case, what I want to show. So that's what I want. So perfect. So let's go ahead and copy this formula down. And then we're going to paste it all the way down here. Paste the formula. There we go. Now we've got the formula pasted. Now we've got conditional formatting. That's what I want. I want the down arrow when we're here. In this case, we are $32 above budget. We budgeted for 100, but we spent more than that, you know. And in this case, so if we change this to 100, we'll go, but that's a little bit more simpler. In this case, we're simply $10 above. We went beyond the budget, and that's what I want. Okay, so what about the percentage? I want to add some additional conditional formatting for that. How do we do that? Let's go ahead and hold down the control, highlight the entire column here, at least the percentage, and conditional formatting. In this, I want a new rule. In this case, I want to use a percentage. So this time, I'm going to use a 3-color scale. So let's choose a 3-color scale, and this is what I want, but let's change it. I want to go from green, and I want to go all the way to red in this case. Let's use that red. So from green to red. In this case, I'm going to use the number. Again, I want to use a number on all of them. Let's change the number and then the number. And what is that number? Let's go the same ones that we chose here. So we're going to go 0.2, right? If it's 0.2, less than there, 0.2. If we're under budget, I want to be negative 0.2 in this case. Or in this case, if we're over budget, I want to be positive 0.2. So it's 20%. So that'll cover it. So that's just what we have here. That's the same percentages we used here. So click OK. And there we go, minus 10%. Perfect. So let's do conditional formatting. And then all we need to do again is copy down that formula, copy the formula, bring it all the way down here, and paste special, paste the formula. There we go. So now we're 10% above. It's going to show kind of an orange. As we increase that, it's going to show more red. That's what I want, red. So we're way above budget on that one because we spent way too much money, wasting time at lunch. All right, so now we've got it really cool. So I got to remove the border on this one. I don't like that border. No outline on this one. That looks better. Perfect, so no outline. All right, good. Now we are ready to go. All we need to do is just a little VBA. What's the VBA going to do? The first thing I want to do is when I add an item here, I want the item type, description, the quantity to show up. How do we do that? Well, that is on Worksheet Change. So let's get that done. I'm going to go into the developers. If you don't have the developers tab, you can just go into the file, options here, depending upon your version, and then customize the ribbon and make sure the developer is selected. You can use a shortcut, of course. Alt F11 will get you there. We're going to go in VBA. We're going to write in some on-sheet code. That's the code that's going to appear on the sheet. Well, I just said we're going to make a change when we make a change. So we're going to focus on Worksheet Change. And it's going to be change. When we make a change, what do we want to happen? Well, when I make a change to a specific column, I want that change. I want to check. I want that item. So that's going to be the change to column D, starting at D10 and going all the way down. So that's the code that we're first going to write on Worksheet Change. We're not going to write on Selection Change. We can remove that. So using my auto hotkey, I'm going to automate that, if not intersection target. We're going to focus again, like I said, on D, column D, D10, all the way through, let's say D9999. Want to make sure that was, and also I want to make sure that we're going to be loading, and I want to make sure that B6 is false. And I only want this to happen when automatically when we're not loading it. When we're loading it, right, this is going to be false. I want to make sure this is false. So how do we do that? Well, we could just make sure and range D6 dot value equals value dot value equals false. Okay. Then what do I want to do? Then I want to do a few things. Then I want to check to make sure that if D is not empty, I need to make sure if we delete something, I want to make sure it's empty. If range D and the target dot row dot value does not equal empty, right? Then I want to do something. Then what do I want to do? Okay. Then I want to set the range. We should dimension a few things before we get started. Let's do that. Dimension the customer row. We're going to use that as long, and the item row as long. And I also we're going to be looking for, we need to find that item, so we're going to dimension the found item as a range. Found item as range. Okay, good. So that's enough. That's all we need there. So basically, this worksheet right here, let's put a notation as on item name change. Okay, we're going to also change something for on customer name change too. So we need to add that in. On customer name change. We'll do that next. So when we change a customer, I want to add in the address 1 and address 2. So we'll do that next. Okay, so if we make a change to that item, what I want to do, I want to look for that item. I want to look for it in this list. If it's found in this list, I want to pull the row, like row 6. Once it's found, I want to put in the materials. I want to put in the item description, the default quantity, and the cost. So I want to put all that information in here. And I'm going to put it right inside here. So bring it all in here. Item description, quantity, and the cost. So how do we do that? Well, it's relatively simple. So let's go ahead and write a little bit of code. The first thing what we're going to be doing is we're going to set the named range. So set the found item equal to, what's it going to be equal to? Based on sheet 5, that's our item list sheet. We know we have the sheet 5 dot range item underscore name. That's the name of the named range that we created. Dot we're going to find. And what are we looking for? We're looking for whatever we just changed. Target value. That's the item name. If that is found, then we need to do something. So how do we know if it's found? If not found item is nothing, then it's found. Double negative. That means not and nothing. That means it's found. Found. Okay. Then we need to do something. What do we need to do? And then end if, right, because it's been found, end if. So if it's been found, I want to get the row. So let's extract the row. The item row is equal to the found item dot row. Item row. So now we have the row. So now we can extract all the information. So now it's pretty simple. Now I just want to say here, E through H is equal to B through E. That's all we need to do. So we just need to write one line of code to do just that. So range E, and what is the row? The target row. And the target dot row and through all the way, we need to focus all the way to the cost, right? We've got to go type, description, quantity, and cost. So all the way through H, we're going to go through and colon H and the target row. Dot value is equal to sheet 5. We know the row because we just range. What is the range? Focused on all the way through B, in this case B, and the item row. And let's bring this over, increase the space here a little bit so we get more room to work with. And colon all the way through. What are we going over? All the way through E. All the way. Okay, so that's all we need to do. So B through E and the item row dot value. Item details. Okay, that's going to bring it all over there. Good, that's it. That's all we need to do. Let's test that out and see how it works. Save our code before doing anything else. And then go ahead and go into the projects. Now all we need to do is double click on this because we've already entered it. Double click on this one, double click on this one. It's working just great. Now theoretically you may want to enter a quantity, but I'm thinking that we just enter the budget and let the user enter the quantity cost. We could default. We could probably, maybe we'll put the cost in too. We could put the cost in, but not the quantity, and then allow the user to put in the quantity. That might be one little, because that means the cost will default. We can do that. Let's go ahead and put in the cost too in column K, just the cost. So the cost from the E, bring it over to K. That's still not going to put our results. We don't want any results here until the user actually puts in the actual results. So let's do that and put that in one additional line of code here. So range, let's bring this down so we can see where we're going on that. Focused on, in this case, K, so range K and the target dot row dot value equals, focus on the cost again, sheet 5 dot range, and it was E. E is our cost, right? E is our cost. That's what we're focused on. So we're going to bring over in E and the item row, right? Item row dot value. Bring over the cost for actual. Okay, so let's just double click on those and see how it works. Double click on that. That works. That works. Remember, we don't want a total. We don't want a total yet unless we put in the quantity. So as soon as we put in 1, then that's exactly right. That's a 1. 0%, 0%, as soon as we change it. Okay, fantastic. We're doing really good here. Now we've got the information here. We've got everything on the items. I want to, now if I change something, let's say, let's put in Fredder's sink, put in just a little bit. Okay, so now if I change the customer, I want the address to come in too. I want the address 1 in here too. So how do we do that? Well, that's a change on F5. So let's write some code if we make a change to F5. So again, if not intersection F5, then what do I want to do? F5. And this can be on load as well. In other words, it can be even on project load, we want the address to show up. So that's fine. So if we change an F5, and I want to make sure if F5 does not equal 7, so if range F5 dot value does not equal empty, and I also want to get a custom row. We're going to put that custom row in B3. So and range B3 dot value does not equal empty, then what? That row is going to come in a formula we're going to add in just a moment. So then we can define the custom row. Customer row is going to be equal to whatever is in B3. I'm going to put that formula in next, so not to worry. Equals B3, and that's going to be the customer row. Okay, so now we have the customer row. All we need to do is put in the address into just 2 lines. So the customers, we notice that our address line is in B, our address 1 is in B, our address 2 is in column C. So all I need to do is determine the customer row, which we're going to do right now. Put the address 1 here and address 2 here. So let's get that customer row. Equals if error, in case there's an error, we don't want to. What I want to do is I want to get the customer row. So based on what? So we're going to use the match formula for that. What are we looking up? We're looking up whatever customer name is in here. What is the lookup array? We're going to use customer name, which we already have, and we want an exact match. We're going to add 3. Why are we adding 3? Because our customer, actually we're adding 2, because our customer rows start in row 3. And if there's an error, double quotes. Why are we adding 3? Right? Our first customer row, Duffy Octavio, our customer is going to start in row 3. That's what we want, row 3. Nothing here. So our first match is going to end up in row 3. That's what I want. Now we have it. If we enter anything else, of course, we're candid. So just in case it won't let us, that's good. So, all right, excellent. Now, also, while we're at it, we need a project row. So let's put that in. Project row is going to be based on this, an I. Notice we have the project list. We're going to do pretty much the exact same formula, just a different name range. Again, equals if error. We're looking up, we're going to use the match, we're looking up, and we're looking up this project number, and we're going to look up the right project number we're looking up. We want an exact match, so we're going to use 0 plus 2 because our first row starts on 3, comma, double quotes in case there's an error. 3, good, that's what I want. So if 2 doesn't exist, so it's going to be blank. Excellent, that's what I want. Okay, so let's save our work so far. Let's go back into the VBA and let's get this address 1 and get address 2 done. So let's type that in right now. So we got the custom row because we know there's a value in B3. So all we need to do is just write some code. So in this case, it's going to be F6 range F6 dot value is equal to, remember our customers is based on sheet 4 dot range B and the customer row dot value. That's going to be address 1, and all we need to do is copy that pretty much and then just change it a little bit to F7 and C. So copy that, paste it in here, change this to F7, which is what I want for the one lower, and then change this to C. That's going to get us our address 2. So now, as soon as we double click on here and change it, it's going to add that information right here. Perfect. Okay, great. So now we got that. Now all we need to do is populate these buttons, get them to work, and we are good to go. Let's center this a bit here. And then I'll add a few spaces on here to put this, make it look a little bit better. Okay, so now we need, let's just write some macros. Anything else we need to do? We need to load the project on while we're on our on sheet. When a user makes a change to here, 1, what I want to do is I want to load project 1 here. So how do we do that? Well, that's a change. It's going to be a, let's format those cells. I'm kind of picky about these things. Added some left border dotted line. Okay, so if they make a change, so that's a change. So let's just write that code up right now. while we're on this or on sheet. That's going to be our last on sheet. So we can clean this up a little bit here. Get rid of the extra spaces here. We're done with that. So this is going to be on project change. On project number change. Okay, because we make a change. So if not, we're going to make a change. We're focused on P6. This is the one. P6 we're going to focus on. So in that case, that's what we want to load. But we do want to make sure, of course, that there is an actual row. P6 is nothing. Then what do we want to do? Then I want to do something. I want to check. First thing I want to do is I want to take whatever is here and I want to put it right here into I2. Why do I want to do that? Because this project row is based on this value in I2. So the first thing I want to do is I2 equals P6. So all we need to do is write that in. So range I2 dot value equals range P6. P6 dot value. Okay, that's going to bring over project ID. Okay, so now all we need to do is run a macro. I'm going to call a macro called project. We're going to write that in just a moment. Project load, and that's going to load the project. So that's going to macro we're going to write. Okay, good. That's all the code that we need for the on the sheet. That's pretty simple. We've got that covered. We're good to go on that. We don't need to come back here unless there's an issue or a bug. Okay, so let's go ahead and write some code. Now we're going to go into the project macros, and we're just going to write 4 small macros. One to save it, one for new, one to load it, and one to print. And just to help us move along, I've dimensioned just some variables here. So we got the project row, project item row, the last item row, and I'll walk you through these variables, and then the results row and the last results row. So first thing we want to do is we want to save it. So we just added this information in here. We've got a budget. Let's put in the date here, 120, and then created by Fred, our favorite character. Okay, so we've got the information, and now what I want to do is I want to click this button here, the save update, and have it update. Okay, I don't like this icon here. Let's move it over a little bit to the right, and the same thing with this one. Make sure everything's consistent so we can clearly see the icons. Okay, so I want to click save and update and have it update. So let's write a macro to do that. Now this same button is going to do both. It's going to save a new or update an existing. So we're going to write some code to help us differentiate between the new ones and the existing ones. So we've got our dimensions up here right now. So let's save it up. So we're going to focus on with sheet 1. So primarily that's it. So we need to first determine if new or existing project. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we know that if this is empty for any reason, or if it does, let's say this is 3, we haven't created a project yet. We know project row is going to be blank, so we can use B4 to help us determine if B4 is empty. That's going to mean it's going to be a brand new project. So that's fine. Let's use that. So if dot range B4 dot value equals empty, then it's a new project. Else existing. And if. Okay, so now we can fill in some information based on whether it's new or whether it's an existing. First thing, what do we want to do? If it is a new one, we need to determine the project row. Our project's going to be saved on sheet 2. So the first thing we want to do is get a project row. And our first one's going to be 4. So we can write some code to do just that, to get us that project row. So let's write some code that. Now, project, we've already determined it above, project row equal to, and I'll use, in this case, sheet 2. And I used, again, auto hotkey to automate that process in sheet 2. I don't type that fast. Okay, sheet 2, that's going to get us, but not the last row. I want +1. That's going to get us the first available row. Okay, so once we have that, what do I want to do? I want to do some things. I want to add a project number. There's certain things like project number, and that's actually just that one. That's the only thing. I want to add that in because we only need to add project number for new projects. So let's do that. What is the project number we're going to be adding? Well, we already use our max to let us know what our next number is. So all we need to do is take whatever's here and place it right in here. And I also want to put it here in our project. I also want to place it here into I2 because that's going to be our next project number. So we can do those two things with some line of code. So dot range I2 dot value equals dot range B7. B7 is where our next one's located. B7 dot value. Next project number or ID is fine. Also, I need to put it inside. So at sheet 2 dot range, now we know A and the project row. dot value is equal to whatever is in I2, right? So it's equal to whatever's in, so we just have to copy this, whatever's in I2, and then paste it in. Equals, put that equals, and let's call that project number. Okay, so now a project number is inside here, and that's all we need to do for new. What about existing? If it's existing, all I need to do is really get the project row. If it's existing, we know the project row. Like, for example, if this was project 1, we would know that it's in B4, so that project row. So if it's not, right, so we know B4. So let's go ahead and put that in. Assuming it's in not blank, project row is equal to what's in B4. So let's put that in B4. Okay, so now we have that. That's our existing, we'll call that existing project row. Existing project row. Great, so now we have that. So now everything else that we're going to do it regardless if it is a new or an existing project. So regardless, everything else. So let's do that. Sheet 2. Now we're not using data mapping here because it's just a few, but in other times we use data mapping, but in this case only a few ones. So this is what we do if it's not data mapping. If you're not familiar with data mapping, you can check some of my prior videos where we use it. So sheet 2B, what do I want to put in? I want to put in the date there. So what do we want to do? And let's just take a quick look summary. In B, I want to put the date. I want to put the name in C. I want to put the customer name in D, and I want to put who created by in E. So that's what we're going to do. So let's write up some code to do just that. And of course, it's going to come from the individual fields up in here. So we're going to write additional code to accommodate that. So B and project row dot value equals dot range, and in this case it's I4. That date's coming from I4. So let's put that in I4. And then we'll put in date. Now all we need to do is just copy and paste it and make a few updates. So the first thing, the next one, of course, is going to be C, then D, then E. So all we need to do is make the updates C, D, and then E. Okay, so after date, we're going to be putting the project name. And then we're going to be putting in the customer name. And then we're going to be putting in the created by. That's the last thing. So that's all we really need to do, created by. Okay, so great. So, but where's that going to come from? Well, let's drop this down a little bit here and then bring this up so we can see the project name. Of course, that's going to be coming from F4, so we can put that in right now. F4 is our project name. Our customer name is going to be in F5, right? That's the cell below, so that's F5. And then lastly, our created by, that's going to be in I and then 5 here. So I5 is where our created by. All right, that's it. That's all we need to do as far as the information. The next step, what I need to do is I need to put this information here. Now I need to add this information. I want to put that into a specific table. So we're going to put the project number. We're going to put all the information in. The actual quantity, going to put in the budgeted quantity, the budgeted cost, the actual quantity, the actual cost. The project row, what does this mean, project row? That's the row of this. So notice 10, right? This is on row 10. And then the project, this is 11, and this would go in project. So that way, when we load it up, it goes back into the same row that we originally saved it in. Okay, so we have that, and also the row here. This is the current row. This is row 3 and 4. I want to save this because I want to bring this row over. I want to bring it over, and I want to put it somewhere else. In this case, I'm going to put it probably in S. I want to put it here a little bit off, and we can hide this. Because when we make a change, I need to know if S is empty. If there's no empty, then we need to add a brand new item. If it's existing, if S does contain a number, then I need to just update this row. So we'll show you, I'll walk you through that process and see just how it goes. So let's go ahead and focus on the items. First thing I need to do is determine what is the last row. Let's go ahead and add some dotted lines to this. We need some format those cells and put some borders around there. We can use this color. I think we used black before. Don't tell anybody, okay? It's just between you and me. All right, so now we've got that. So all I want to do is really just update that materials and get those items into that, either in their existing, if they're previously saved, put them in here. If not, add new ones. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to use S as our helper column there to determine that. So let's write some code to do that. So going to focus, continue down here, and now what we're going to do is let's call this add or update project items. And the first thing, like I said, we need to loop through all the items. So we're going to loop through, we're going to get the last one. In this case, the last one's 12. We're going to use column D to help us and determine which one is. So last item row is going to be equal to, in this case, column comment that out, last item row. And then just in case there's no items, there's nothing to loop through, we need to add to make sure that the last item row is not less than 10. If not, we need to skip that. So if last item row is less than 10, then go to no items. And then what we'll do is we'll drop that down here and then put in no items. So we can skip everything else just in case. So assuming that there is items, we can move on. So now let's go ahead, maybe I'll use Q because S is too far over. S is too far over. And I'm going to use Q. I'll put those numbers in Q. So let's just type this in database row. So that's going to be our database row. So it's going to go right here. You can hide this, of course. This will be hidden, or you can change the font color to the same as the background because users shouldn't see this, but it's important that it's there. Okay, so continuing on. So now we can start our loop. So we're going to start out in for the item row is equal to 10 to the last item row, and close our loop. Next item row. Now once our loop is closed, we can focus on that. So we're going to use Q. If dot range Q and the item row dot value does not equal empty, that means it's existing. Then existing, it means it's, let's just put previously saved, because there's a row there. Then put out the print then. Okay, then what else? Else, we'll call it a new item. Else not previously saved. Okay, so then the and if, make sure we close our and if. All right, so now we got it. So what if it's there? Now, assuming that there is a value there, it's not empty, then we can put that into a variable. So I want to put that in project item row is going to be basically equal to whatever is here. So we can copy this and then equals. Okay, and that's our project item row. But what if Q is empty? Well, then we have to get a project item row. We're going to use the first available one. Project item row is going to be equal to the first available one. In this case, we're focused on sheet 3, right? That's where our project items are. Sheet 3. Sheet 3 is where let's call that +1. It's going to be our first available row. First available row. Okay, so now we've got the first available row. Again, there's some things that I want to do only for new items. Here's our project items. What do I want to do? There's only really one thing. I want to put that project ID, I want to put it in column A. That's important. And I also want to put in the row because that's not going to change. And I'm also going to put in this. So I'm going to put in this information here automatically. So I want to put in the current row, the row, and this. So these 3 items should only go for new ones. So let's put those in right now inside the code. So the first thing I want to do is sheet 3.range. A is going to where our project goes. A, and we've already got the row project item row dot value equals what? It's going to equal our project ID. Where is that located? We know that that's located right here into I2. So we can go ahead and put that inside our code. Equals dot range I2. So that's going to be our project ID. Project ID. Okay, so once we have the project ID, I also want to add those 2 other things that were very important. So again, what I also want to do, one more thing actually, so I want to put the row, that project row right here too, so we know what item. That is going to be the row, whatever's this row here. So for example, if the next one's 5, I want to take that 5, I want to put that 5 right here. So we can do that right now inside this code. Dot range Q, and we're focused on the item row, and the item row dot value is equal to, in this case, project item row. Set the, let's call this database row, that's fine. Okay, so we've now set the database row in Q, and now what I want to do is I want to set J. I want to set 2 things. Inside the database, I want to set column I, the project row, which is an item row, and this. So I want to set I and J. So let's do that right now. Okay, so we can just copy this here, right here, and then we can just update it. So in this case, it's not going to be item A. We're going to focus on, in this case, I. And what's I? I is going to be our item row equals item row. That's the row, or otherwise known as project row, project row. Okay, project item row. And then I want to know the database row. So that's going to be, the database row is simply going to be a formula we can use. So it's going to be equals row. We could also, Formulas are good if you're going to be deleting lines in case we delete items, so we're going to put a formula in there. Okay, so that formula will automatically generate the row. Notice that there's a formula here. It says row. That's what I want to do. I want to generate that row. Okay, so we've got the row in there, but of course that's going to go in column J. It's in quotation. Okay, so that's it for new items. What next? So now everything else we want to do is going to be regardless again for new or existing items. So we can skip out of that. Right? We've determined what we're doing for existing items. We're determining what we're doing for new items, and the rest we're going to do regardless if it's new or existing items. So I want to pretty much basically take B, in this case, whatever is located in, let's pull it up. In this case, we're going to say basically B all the way through F is going to be equal to whatever is located in D through H, and then of course we're also going to do J and K. So let's write that into some code now, just those 2 lines. So sheet, I think we got that page. Sheet 3, in this case D, B, through project item row and, right, it's not finished, and all the way through, let's pull that up so we know the row. We're going to pull project B through F. That's what we're focused on. F and the project item row dot value is going to be equal to dot range D and the item row and all the way through, I think it was H, we'll check that, and the item row. Okay, good. Let's just take a look at that and bring it over here. So it's all the way through H, exactly. So I want to bring all this over, and then the next thing I want to do is I want to bring this information over in one more line of code. So we can just copy it and then update the ranges. So I'm going to, this is going to be called, let's just call this item details. And then I'm going to copy this over, and then we're just going to update it because we need to add in, of course, the actual. This can be a different range. So in this case, we're going to focus on the actual. The actuals are going to be here, simply J and K. J and K. So it's from to J and then K here. And it's coming from, we're going to put that, where are we putting that in? Putting that in 2 different ones. We're putting the actual quantity and actual cost, G and H. So there, G and H. Okay, great. So we've got G and H, we've got everything covered, and that we'll just call this the actual details. All right, that's it. So that's it. That's it for our loop. And then we can close out our loop. So we're going to do that for every single item. And then what I want to do is I want to make sure that we have saved it now. It's no longer new. I want to make sure that B5 is set to false. So we can just encase that. So let's go ahead and write that in right now. Dot range B5 dot value equals false. Existing, let's just say set new project to false. And then what else do I want to do? I also want to make sure the project load is set to false. So I want to show B6, but it shouldn't be, so we don't necessarily need that. That's fine. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and save that. And let's go ahead and clear that out. It's now a new project. I want to make sure that the project shows new because I want to save it. I'm going to take this button here that we created. I'm going to right-click it, assign the macro, and I'm going to put it project, and then here, save update. That's the macro that I want to assign. Let's take a look at that inside the code. Go back up. We're good to go on that. Let's just bring this down in case there's no items. I want to just bring this up here so that we can automatically set the new one to false no matter what. All right, now we'll check for bugs. We'll run our macro. We've already saved it, so always after running a macro, check for any bugs, and there's no bugs. Notice how that the rows automatically populated. Let's check our project. We have our new project information here. We have the information here already there. Project items got saved. The project number 2 got created. The rows 10, 11, and 12 got saved. Brand new rows. Everything looks good. Wow, good. That worked out well. All right, great. So we just have 2 small macros to write, add new, and then load. We're going to write in the print. So just 3 ones, but this one's really tiny. Let's write in code. So now what I want to do, now I've created project 2. When I hit project 2, enter here, I want that project to load. Or when I put in 1, I want project load to run. So to load up. So how do we do that? Well, it's relatively simple. We're just going to write the macro called the project load. That's the one, this one. Let's move this up here so we can keep it in line. Bring it up here. So next up we're going to write, then we're going to do project new, which is just a few lines of code. Then we're going to do print, which is just 2 lines of code. So let's write in the project load right now. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to focus on sheet 1. With sheet 1, we're going to focus on sheet 1. And the first thing is we can't load a project, right, unless we actually have a row. So we certainly need to make sure that B4 is not blank. So that's the first thing we're going to check. If .range B4.value equals empty, then message box, please enter a correct project number. Exit. So, okay, assuming that B4 does contain the value, we can then just put that into a variable. So the project row is going to be equal B4. So we'll just copy and paste that and bring it down. And now that's going to give us our project number, obviously. Kind of self-explanatory. Okay, so now that we have a project row, okay. Now that we have a project row, what I want to do is I want to clear out all the fields. I want to make sure that before we load anything, I want to clear out everything. So let's write a code to do that. .range, and then what are the fields? We're going to shoot F3 through F7. F3, that's going to give us through F7. I want to clear that out. Also, I want to make sure that I4 through I5, I'm going to clear those details out. I4 through I5. And also, I want to make sure that I want to erase the formulas, but I want to clear this out, not the formulas, and this out, and not the formulas here. So basically, everything here and here. So it's going to be D through H and J through K. So let's write that. D10 through DH. Let's bring this down so we can see it a little bit. 999. Okay, also again, J10 through K and then 999, that'll cover it. Okay, so we're going to clear that out, not value, but clear contents. Clear contents. Okay, that's going to clear the fields. Okay, so once the fields are cleared, then what I can do is I want to set the project load to true. So what that's going to do is keep those item names from automatically appearing in the item. It's not going to look it up when its project's loading. So we're going to set B6 to true temporarily. .range B6 value is going to equal true. And then before this macro ends, we're going to set it back to false. Set project load to true. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it down. I'm going to set it to false. Now, that way I don't forget. So that's a good way to do it. So I'm going to copy this, change it to false, and then write the code in between. False here, and then false here. And then we're going to write all the code in between. That's a good way to do it. Okay, so now we're going to write all the code in between here. So what's the next thing that I want to do when I want to load? Now we know the project grows, so now we're ready to load the project information. So basically all I need to do is just reverse what I did in the save. So we're going to take this. This is an easier way to do it. I'm going to take all this. We know the project grow. I'm going to bring it back in, but I'm going to reverse it. So I'm going to paste it down here. But in this case, it's going to be the completely opposite. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it here, and then I'm going to just drag the equals. And I'm going to do that for each of the 4, and then we'll double check it. So then I'm going to bring it. So this time it's opposite of sheet 2. So we're bringing the information from the database into our worksheet. So all I can do is it's pretty easy just to drag and drop because we know we've got this right. So we just need to bring it over. Make sure that you've got the equals and the periods and everything in line, and then we'll pretty it up a little bit. If we miss something, we're going to it's going to let us know. Bring it over here to the beginning, and then we'll do that with the last one after the equals here right in the middle. And then, okay, good. So we've got all of them here now, and we just have to indent properly so that everything looks nice. So highlight it. What we'll do is we'll shift tab, bring it over, and there you go. That's nice. So that's going to bring all the information over a little bit easier than running it. Now we're ready. So now we've loaded all this information above here, but now I need to load in the items. So we're going to bring it in from the item list. So what do I want to do in our project item list? I want to load in whatever 1 or 2. I want to run an advanced filter based on all of the items for a specific project. Project number 1, project number 2, whatever. So we can use an advanced filter, and we're going to use a criteria for that advanced filter. And all we need to do, again, I've got a formula here. It's going to link up our project number based on this, whatever's here. So whatever's here in I2 is automatically, so our criteria is automatically set. What I want to do is I want the results to come here for a specific project. Then what I want to do is to loop through results, check to make sure that there are results. And then I'm going to loop from 3 to 4. I'm going to look for the project row number. Once I get that number, I know what row to place it in, whether it's row 10 or row 11. Then I can just basically copy in all the information here, copying all the information here, and that's it. That's all I need to do. So we're going to write some macros that are going to do just that. So let's go ahead and write that advanced filter. But the first thing we want to do is determine the last row. If we're going to run our advanced filter on items, I need to know the last row. In this case, it's 7. So let's pull that into a variable and do that now. Okay, so our last project item row is equal to, and this is going to be sheet 3, and then XLR. Okay, that's going to, okay, so that's going to get us our last row. Let's just, using column A, that's going to give the last item row. Once we have that, we can then run our advanced filter because our criteria is already set. Just in case if the last project, can't run our advanced filter if there's no data. Project item row is less than 3, then we're going to go to no items. Go to no items. And that's going to, what I want to do is I want to go to no items, but I want to go right to here. No items. Okay, so everything else is going to be above that, assuming that there are items. So here's where we're going to write our information in. Now we can write it in. So what do we want to do? I want to loop through that after running our advanced filter. So sheet 3.range, where's our, we're going to start out with A2 all the way through J. That is our data A2 through J and the last project item row dot advanced filter. We're going to copy that. We're going to use criteria range colon equals, what's our criteria again? Sheet 3, make sure we specify the sheet dot range. It's going to be located here. L2 through L3. L2 through L3. That's our criteria, comma, and then copy to range. Where are we going to copy it? Equals to, we're going to copy that to N2. Let's take a look at that range right here. Copying it to N2 all the way through W2. So we'll write that in. Copy to range sheet 3 dot range N2 through W2. That's going to, all right. And the last thing is unique colon equals true. Okay, that's our advanced filter. Let's just look at that real quick. A2 through J in the last project item row, advanced filter, copy it, the criteria range, L2 through L3, copying it to range sheet 3, range N2 through W, and then equals true. Perfect, that's what I want. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to run a check here. I'm just going to copy this, but I'm going to change the variable. In this case, what we want to do is we want to get the last row of the item. So let's write in that code. In this case, we're going to use a variable called last item results row equal to, and then we're going to use the results. We're going to use N as the column. So sheet 3 dot, and then we'll use column N. It's going to help us, and then get rid of that space. We don't need that. So that's going to get us a last. If the last item results row is less than 3, then we have no item. So I'm going to paste that here. In this case, the last items, what does that mean? It means if there's no data, the last item row is less than 3, it would be 2. So we need to go to no data. Okay, so once we have items, we can start to loop through them. So let's set our loop. For the result row is equal to 3 to the last item result row. And then close our loop, next result row. Okay, so now we have our loop. So now we're ready to bring our information over. All we need to do is get our root. So I need to know the project item row. In this case, it's in V. So the project item row is equal to sheet 3 dot range V and result row dot value. This is our project item row. We need that. That's very important. Once we have that, we can bring the information over. So dot range focused on, again, our project row, D and the project item row dot value, and I guess all the way through, in this case, through H, just as we did last time, and again, the project, those are long variables, item row dot value. What is that going to be equal? It's going to equal basically everything from O here all the way to S, so O through S. So we're going to focus on that. equals sheet 3 dot range O, and of course we're focused on the results row this time, and the result row and colon all the way through S and the result row dot value. That's going to bring over all of the item details. Details. All right, the next up, we just need to bring the actual quantity and the actual cost. So that's it. We just need to do that. So that in that case, we're going to bring in basically from U and V is going to go all the way over to, in this case, J and K. So let's write that up right now. Dot range J, and again, the project item row and K colon K, and the project item row. Could have just copied and pasted it, item and updated it. Dot value equals, again, let's copy and paste this here, and we can just paste it over and then update the range here. So in this case, what's it going to equal? These two items here, we're just focused on T and U. That's all we're going to focus on. So we just update this to T and U accordingly. Okay, so now we have the item. These will be the actual, let's just call this actual details. Costs. Okay, so we've got that. And now what I want to do one more thing. I want to bring over this row and I want to put it into Q. I want to know what row it is. So I want to bring that over and put it right into Q here, right here. So once it's loaded in. So let's do that right now. So dot range Q and the project item row dot value equals sheet 3 dot range W and the result row dot value. That's going to be our database row. So right, it's going to come all the way from W from here, right here, W, bringing that over and placing it in Q. So that way we know what row it's been saved on when we update it. Okay, great. So that's pretty much it for load. I just want to set a few things in here. So we've got the project load. Let's fix this. We need the and sign there. Can't do without that. And okay, let's take a look at that. That looks good. Save our work. One more thing, I want to set, obviously I set the project load to false. I also want to set new project to false too. It's no longer a new project. New projects are stored in B5. So let's put that in. Set new project to false. It's no longer new. If we've just loaded it up, we need to make sure it's no new. So here, new project, we go to false. Okay, great. Let's check that. Save it. Now, remember, we're automatically running this code. Every time we make a change to P6, we've already written the code right here, right? Right here in P6, we've already written. When we make a change, we're going to look at I2, bring it in 6, and bring over the project ID. So now all we need to do is just click 2 and double check. Let's take a look at this bug range. We need an E at the end of that, obviously. Continue on. Okay, that looks good. We've just loaded 2. Let's switch back to 1 and 2. Nice. Our project's loading good. Great. 2 small macros to write, and I'm going to let you go. Appreciate this is a little bit longer, but they all are then again. All right, so project new, very, very simple. I'm going to copy this because we're going to clear the contents for project new. So we're going to need that line of code there. So how do we do that? Project new, very, very simple. We're going to focus on with sheet 1. So with sheet 1. First thing I want to do is clear out the contents. So I'm going to paste in that field. Obviously, we're going to set B5 to true. I want to notice that. I want to make sure that B5 is true. It's a new project. So let's put that in. Again, we can just copy this up here. B5, we put it up here and set that to true. Equals true, new project. And I want to set the default date. Why don't we put in a date for new project? Let's put in I4. Let's put in the current date on I4. So dot range I4, let's go I4 equals date. Okay, set the current date. That's going to be fine. And then what do I want to do? I want to set the project number I2 to B7. I want to set this project number. I want to, whatever's here in the next project, I want to put it up here into I2. So let's do that. Dot range I2 in this case is going to be equal to B7 equals dot range B7. Next project Okay, great. So we've got the next project number, we've got the date, we've got everything set up, we've cleared the contents. That's all we need to do. I'm going to save our code, then I'm going to assign the macro. This one, add new, click assign macro, and the project new, click OK. All right, that looks good. And then just click add new. Nice, everything cleared out, the date focused on, our name cleared out, our information cleared out. We do need to put in these two formulas here. Let's load it up again. I want to load it. Okay, let's go ahead and put in the formulas. What's the dollar difference? Equals L5 minus L2. So I want to know the dollar difference. In this case, the difference of 650. And I also want to know the percentage difference. What is the percentage difference? And simply, it's going to be equal to L5 divided by L2. In this case, divided by L2. That's going to get us our percentage difference. So I want to know that. So here we've got a 98, the percentage is 91% difference. In this case, we have a total budget of 80. Our actual cost, we are under budget, 91%, right? We're not in a 100% budget, we're under budget. That's what we want. And we're difference of $6.50. Very good. Okay, so one more thing to do, print the project, and that is it. Last macro we're going to tend right here. So sub project print, that's the one we're going to focus on. Very, very easy. The only thing I will need to do is I need to determine, I don't want to print this whole thing if there's no rows. So let's do the last item row. Let's get that last item row. You know, we got that already, that last item row, all the way when we were saving it actually. So let's pull that up. Let's get that last item row and copy that down here. And now I'm going to set the print range. So we've got our print range. So let's go project print, but I do need to add a sheet number in here, sheet 1, because I won't do sheet 1. So our last item row, we have that there. Now what I want to do is I want to set our page print, sheet 1 dot page setup dot, I want to do the print area is going to be equal to, what are we going to print out? We're probably going to start out with D2 up here on the right, and I want to go over all the way to probably, I would say, N. So why don't we write that up? Is going to equal to, and in this case, we'll use the absolute D and then the absolute 2, starting that colon all the way through, and then N, and then what do we want? The last row, and the last item row. That's going to set our print area. Now all we need to do is just print it out. Sheet 1 dot print out, and then what are we going to print out? In this case, from 1, we don't need that. From 2, we don't need that. Copies, preview, we don't need that. Active printer, let's just put true. I want the active printer. And then this case, print to file, no. And then collate, no. Print to file name, no. And then ignore print areas, no. So there we go. So let's do that. All right, I like that. And let's go ahead and set our print. That's going to set our print range. And then let's go ahead and save it. Assign the macro to this. Click assign macro. Print the project, click OK, and I've got Snagit as my default printer, so let's move over here. Print that out. It's going to print it automatically out, run the macro, and here's my Snagit. Let's zoom out here. That looks pretty good. We've covered everything. All right, we'll take a look at this. We've covered a project costing budget versus actual. We've created using icons and conditional formatting colors. We've created this really cool gauge chart using that. We've got the total budget, above or below budget, creating, saving, and adding new projects. Thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed this. If you do like this training, I would love if you could pick up the 150 workbook pack. That's going to help us out. It's just $56 or 37 cents per workbook. That is going to help us out. Or perhaps check out our mentorship program if you want to learn how to create your own applications for passive income. I'm teaching you all that inside our mentorship program. That'll help us out a lot. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.